What would you do if the person you nearly died for left you for someone richer? If the woman you gave your kidney to blocked you and disappeared like you meant nothing? This is the true story of love, betrayal, regret, and the kind of forgiveness that will leave you speechless. A man gave a part of his body to the woman he loved. She gave him heartbreak in return. But what happens when fate flips the script? Stay with us till the end. This is a story that will touch your soul. And if you believe in the power of second chances, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that inspire and heal. Let's begin. Imagine giving someone your heart and even a part of your body, only for them to toss you aside like yesterday's trash. That was exactly what happened to Lucas Miller, a 32-year-old blue-collar worker living in suburban Ohio. Lucas wasn't rich. He wasn't flashy. But he was the kind of man every woman claimed she wanted. Loyal, gentle, grounded, and full of heart. For 5 solid years, he was in a relationship with Ruby Carter, a soft-spoken preschool teacher with a dimpled smile that could melt the hardest of hearts. To Lucas, Ruby was everything. She was not just his girlfriend. She was his world, his reason for hustling 2 jobs, and his constant prayer. Not once did Lucas glance at another woman. Not once did he raise his voice. He loved her with everything he had. Then came the storm. Ruby was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney failure. Doctors said she wouldn't survive the year without a transplant. Her name was placed on a donor list, but the wait was endless. Lucas didn't even hesitate. He ran the tests, signed the papers, and gave her one of his kidneys, willingly, quietly, and with joy. To him, it wasn't even a decision. If she lives, I live, he told the doctor. The transplant was successful. While Ruby recovered quickly in her hospital suite, Lucas lay pale and groggy in another wing, his body struggling to bounce back from the surgery. But none of it mattered to him. He didn't care about the pain, the scars, or the weakness. Ruby was alive. That was his victory. But the woman who once clung to his hand during chemo appointments began to drift away. 3 months after the surgery, Ruby stopped answering his texts. She skipped his birthday for the first time in years. Her wardrobe changed. Her attitude shifted. When Lucas finally sat her down and asked, "Is something wrong?" she looked him dead in the eyes and said, "I just need some space." That space became silence. That silence became distance. And soon, Lucas received the cruelest confirmation. His friends began sending him photos of Ruby, smiling wide, riding passenger in a brand new black Mercedes G-Wagon, arm in arm with a man who looked like he stepped out of a rap video, covered in tattoos, layered in gold chains, and trailed by bodyguards. His name was George Simmons, a high-rolling nightclub investor with a dark history and deeper pockets. Lucas's heart shattered. The woman he nearly died for had traded his love for a life of diamonds and designer brands. Ruby blocked him. On Instagram, on WhatsApp, on every phone line. She changed her number. She vanished. But Lucas didn't retaliate. He didn't beg. He didn't post cryptic messages on social media. Instead, he went quiet. He returned to his day job, launched a small landscaping business on the weekends, and let the pain shape him, not destroy him. While Ruby played queen in a mansion paid for by greed, Lucas humbled himself, healed, and hustled. And that's when things started to shift. A local realtor hired him to redo her garden. then referred him to 3 of her clients. A TikTok video of his lawn transformation went viral. By the end of the year, Lucas's weekends were booked out 6 months in advance. His savings grew. His confidence returned. He no longer felt broken. He felt built. But while one life was rising, another was about to crash. While Lucas's life was slowly blooming with purpose and stability, Ruby's world, on the surface, seemed flawless. She was living in a luxury penthouse on the top floor of a high-rise in downtown Miami, surrounded by crystal chandeliers, infinity pools, and imported marble floors. George Simmons, the man she now called Babe, spared no expense. Private chefs cooked her dinner. Stylists dressed her. She flew first class to Dubai and Monte Carlo. Instagram loved her curated life. And yet, under all that glitter, there was a stench of rot. Ruby chose not to ask questions. She ignored the strange men who visited George late at night, the locked rooms in the mansion, and the burner phones he always kept close. When his mood shifted, she blamed stress. When he vanished for days, she told herself it was business. What she didn't know, what she didn't want to know, was that George was being hunted. 6 months into her pregnancy, the illusion shattered. It was early morning. Ruby stood in the kitchen, rubbing her swollen belly while sipping orange juice. Then she heard it. Sirens, loud, growing louder. Red and blue lights flashed against the windows. Then came the pounding. "Open up! FBI!" Within seconds, the front door exploded open. Armed agents stormed the house. Ruby screamed. George tried to run but was slammed to the ground in handcuffs. She kept screaming. "Why? What's going on?" No one answered. It was only later she found out. George was the ringleader of an interstate drug trafficking operation. Money laundering, armed robbery, racketeering, and he had been HIV positive for over a year. She never knew. The next day, Ruby was tested. The result, positive, just like him. But the nightmare didn't end there. The house, the cars, the jewelry, none of it was in her name. Everything had been seized. The banks repossessed the assets, one after another. The maids left. The bodyguards disappeared. Ruby was left alone, terrified, with nothing but a baby growing inside her and a positive diagnosis that felt like a death sentence. George's family, embarrassed and furious, kicked her out of their lives completely. No money, no home, no calls returned. She ended up in a shelter for single mothers, curled up on a metal bunk bed, staring at peeling paint and fluorescent lights that buzzed all night. Her designer shoes were gone. Her face, once adored by thousands online, now looked hollow, pale, and broken in cracked mirrors. Some nights, she wandered the streets, hungry, begging for coins. The same city that once worshipped her beauty now turned its face away. Her friends, gone. Her family, ashamed and silent. And all she had left was regret. Each night she wept, clutching her stomach, whispering apologies into the darkness. But no one answered. No one held her hand, except the memory of someone who once did. Lucas. She remembered him in flashes. His hand in hers on the hospital bed. His tired eyes staying open all night to monitor her breathing. His voice praying quietly while she slept. And now, her soul ached for the man she discarded like an empty bottle. The man who had given her a piece of his body and asked for nothing in return. But what could she possibly say now? The rain had been relentless that evening, fat, cold drops pounding the streets of downtown Miami. Lucas Miller was driving home from a charity event with his wife Ivy beside him. Ivy, soft-spoken and full of grace, had changed his world in ways he never expected. Where Ruby had once been his everything, Ivy became his healing. Their life together was peaceful and meaningful. Ivy helped Lucas turn his once small landscaping business into Miller & Green, a nationwide eco-design company that now employed over 100 people. They lived in a modest yet beautiful home in Coral Gables, spent weekends volunteering at shelters, and had adopted 2 little girls from foster care. Lucas no longer spoke about Ruby, not out of hate, but because he had released the pain. But fate doesn't knock. It just arrives. As their car stopped at a red light near a gas station, Lucas glanced out the window. At first, it was just a figure, sitting curled on the curb, soaked in rain, wrapped in what looked like an old towel. But something about her posture, the tilt of her shoulders, struck him. He looked closer. His breath caught in his throat. "Ivy, that's..." His voice trailed off. Ivy followed his gaze, then turned to him. "Do you want to stop?" she asked gently. Lucas nodded. He pulled the car over and stepped out into the rain. The woman looked up, eyes sunken, lips trembling, her entire body shivering from the cold. And there she was, Ruby. He barely recognized her. Her face was gaunt, her clothes were torn, and her skin, once glowing with high-end skincare, was now weathered, cracked, and pale. Her belly had clearly shrunk post-delivery, but her arms cradled a small baby wrapped in a ragged sheet. She blinked slowly, as if unsure if this was a hallucination or a haunting. Lucas, she stammered. Her voice cracked like old paper. Then she collapsed. Lucas caught her before she hit the ground. People nearby watched curiously, some judging, some indifferent. But Lucas didn't care. He lifted her gently and carried her into the car. Ivy had already spread out a blanket in the back seat and cleared space for the baby. They drove straight to a private hospital. Lucas didn't ask questions. He didn't demand apologies. He simply signed the admission papers and handed over his credit card. Ruby was treated for severe malnutrition, dehydration, and anxiety-related seizures. Her baby, born premature, was weak but stable. The doctors kept them under close watch. For days, Ruby didn't speak. She just stared at the ceiling, eyes dry but heavy with stories. Lucas came only once. He stood by the doorway. Ivy placed a bag of clean clothes on the table. Ruby looked up, tears finally flowing. "I didn't expect you to help me," she whispered. Lucas's voice was calm. "I didn't help you because you earned it, Ruby. I helped you because grace found me when I didn't deserve it either." And then he walked away. That single sentence echoed in Ruby's soul for days. She had expected rejection, scorn, maybe even revenge. But instead, she had been met with mercy. She clutched her baby to her chest and cried, not from pain or hunger this time, but from an overwhelming wave of regret and shame. She remembered the apartment she once shared with Lucas, how they used to dance to old records on Friday nights, cook ramen together, and dream of a simple life. She remembered the love that had been pure and real, and how easily she had thrown it away for glimmering lies. Now, all of that was gone. But something new had appeared, a second chance. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she silently vowed, if she ever walked again, she would walk differently. 3 weeks after being admitted, Ruby was discharged from the hospital, physically better, but emotionally a maze of remorse, gratitude, and deep confusion. She had nowhere to go, no family waiting, no home to return to. The nurses told her the bills were fully paid, and even the hospital-provided baby supplies were covered. She knew who had done it, but she couldn't understand why. Why would the man she betrayed so viciously, humiliated so publicly, still help her and ask for nothing? She waited a few more days to gain strength. Then, one overcast morning, Ruby wrapped her infant son in a borrowed shawl, slipped into a pair of donated sneakers, and walked for miles until she reached the gated neighborhood where Lucas now lived. Her knees trembled as she stood at the front gate. Part of her wanted to run. Part of her screamed, "You don't deserve to see him." But she had to say thank you. She had to say sorry, not to fix the past, but to honor the truth. The security guard, an older man with gentle eyes, recognized her. Perhaps he had been warned, perhaps not, but without a word, he opened the gate. Moments later, the door to the home opened, and there stood Ivy. Ruby froze. For several long seconds, neither woman spoke. Then, as tears welled in Ruby's eyes, she knelt. "I'm not here to stay," she whispered, voice cracking. "I just came to say thank you. And I'm so sorry for everything." She placed the baby gently beside her and lowered her forehead to the concrete. Ivy didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, lifted Ruby from the ground, and wrapped her arms around her. No judgment, no pride, just empathy. "Come inside," Ivy said softly. Ruby sobbed into her shoulder, unable to speak. She had expected coldness. She had braced for slamming doors. Instead, she found compassion. When Lucas entered the room, he paused. He didn't look shocked. He looked peaceful. Ruby sat across from him and spoke, slowly at first, then like a river flooding its banks. She told him everything. How George had lured her in with promises. How she had chosen greed over gratitude. How the life she thought was heaven turned into a prison. She confessed to the nights she wanted to disappear forever, to the days she felt her baby move inside her while eating from trash cans. She told him about the disease, the betrayal, the collapse of her soul. And when her voice finally gave out, she whispered, "I don't expect your forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I lost." Silence blanketed the room. Then Lucas looked at her with the gentlest eyes. "You lost me," he said softly, "but you didn't lose grace." Ruby broke down again, but this time, they were not tears of guilt. They were tears of cleansing. Lucas and Ivy offered her a place in their foundation's transitional home for single mothers, a humble but safe space with beds, meals, therapy, and skill-building workshops. They gave her privacy. They gave her dignity. And most of all, they gave her a fresh beginning. Ruby didn't overstep. She never tried to reconnect romantically. She respected Ivy. She respected the distance. But she poured her entire being into rebuilding her life. 2 years passed. Ruby was now strong, healthy, and running her own small daycare center called Little Grace, a safe haven for children of struggling moms. Her son, named Elijah, was growing fast, curious, bright-eyed, and adored by everyone. Sometimes Ruby's heart ached at night, wondering what might have been. But she had made peace with her path. She had found meaning in the ashes. Lucas continued to flourish. His life with Ivy was full of joy and service. They adopted more children. Their home became a beacon of healing. And every now and then, when people asked Lucas, "How could you help someone who broke you?" he simply smiled and said, "Some people teach you love. Some teach you pain. But the rare ones, they teach you just how powerful forgiveness really is." And in the end, it wasn't wealth, revenge, or justice that changed lives. It was forgiveness. If this story moved you, please like, share, and let someone know that grace is real, and sometimes it saves not just one life, but many. Love.